That's such a
So no wonder he was willing to pull Flappy Bird down then.
Why didn't I?
Well,
He had to
because
have
it just got
banked.
so bad. Like,
And he was trying to kill
no, he didn't want it to be the responsible for like an addictive product. That's what he said.
He made enough money, so
He can just settle down.
Okay. So this scenario that we have here
still have that game.
is going to track us through the whole first part of our lecture today. So you are a website designer. You design websites. You charge your customers $200 a website. You're selling about 12 websites a month. So you are grossing how much a month? $2,400 a month. Wow. Did we learn our times tables?
I can't they put that in.
Yeah, you can't math, we can't math.
12 times 2, and then add the 2 zeros. Wow, I am judging you. Okay, but your costs are going up. You need a new computer, your landlord raised the rent, electrical bills are higher, and so you're considering increasing the cost of your websites by $50. Hint, do 12 times 5 and then add that to your original figure. Okay, so the law of demand tells us what will happen if you do this, if you raise your price to $250.
You won't sell as much.
The quantity demanded for your product will go down, correct? Okay, could we graph that?
Yes.
Show me with your hands what that would look like. No, it will not go from here to here. It will go from here to here.
No, that's right.
Right? It's a movement along the curve. Yes, there you go. Worsfold has got it. Okay.
Too far.
The question is, and this is where these equations and stuff with elasticity will come in today, how many fewer? How do you know how much of an impact it's going to have? How much will your revenue fall? Or will you sell enough fewer that the increased price per will increase your overall revenue? This is what elasticity answers for us. Okay, definition time. Well, actually not definition, just basic understanding. Okay, elasticity measures how responsive one variable is to another. So in our website design scenario, elasticity is going to tell us how responsive demand is to changes in price, or quantity demanded is to changes in price. Okay? There are different types of elasticity. The one we're looking at here is going to measure how much demand will change if we raise our price. Here's your definition. You don't have to memorize this definition, but you have to know it. Do you understand that distinction? This one you don't have to regurgitate verbatim. It's the responsiveness of quantity demanded or quantity supplied to a change in one of its determinants. And elasticity has its own determinants. Why wouldn't it? Yes, you're exactly right. There are 4 determinants of elasticity. Huh? It is better than 5, yes.
Or are you lying to us and you're going to sneak one in at the end?
No. No. I'm good with 4 on this one. Okay. Now, this does not say elasticity. This is a different concept. This is price elasticity of demand. This is one of the types of elasticity. So price elasticity of demand. Elasticity is this broad, overarching topic, and within it, you have different kinds of elasticity. So here we're talking about price elasticity of demand. Okay. There's an equation that you're going to get in a second. Don't focus too much on the broad equation yet. Price elasticity of demand specifically looks at changes in quantity demanded relative to changes in price. That should be fairly self-evident based on the name of the type of elasticity. Price elasticity of demand measured changes in quantity demanded relative to price. I have to be very concrete about it. Sometimes the obvious goes over your guys' heads. You're snickering, Aaron, but sometimes the smarter the kid, the lower the common sense. Okay. Now, this is the basic equation, but it's not specific enough for you to be able to apply it and get it right. And in the next couple of slides, I'll show you why you won't get it right just off of this equation. So if you have your equation sheet and you have this equation on that sheet, you might want to be ready to write the more specific breakdown next to it. Okay. Generally, you can think of price elasticity of demand as being the measure of how sensitive buyers are to changes in price. How much will they react if I shift the price? And the answer to that depends on a whole lot of things. Price of what? How important is it to their everyday functioning? And that's where we're going to get into our determinants of elasticity. Okay. So let's look at an actual graphical example. Okay. Say the price goes up by 10%. Quantity demanded falls by 15%. Could we plug this in? 15 over 10 gives us... Huh? Yes, Michael, did you say yes? It gives us yes? It gives us 1.5. I'm glad Michael can math. Good. Okay, so price elasticity of demand for this commodity is 1.5. I know that that number means zilch to you at this moment in time. It will in a minute. Just work with me. We're just doing the math. Don't worry about how you found that it's 15 and 10. We're going to get there. I'm giving you basics here. No, I'm giving you information to just plug in, and then we're going to dig deeper into how to get that information that I gave you. Fair question, KK. Nope, not super obvious at all.
So you're basically just finding the slope?
You are essentially finding the slope, yes, for those of you who math. But there's a catch. If you just find the slope, you might be wrong because it matters how you find the slope. You have to use the midpoint, not the endpoints. For those of you who math. Okay? If you don't math, don't worry about the words that just fell out of my face. If you math, midpoints, not endpoints. Okay. So along a demand curve, price and quantity are going to move in opposite directions, which would make price elasticity negative. But we can't have negative elasticity. It needs to be in non-zero numbers or non-negative numbers. Okay, so we have to drop the negative sign. It always needs to be a positive number, or it is possible for it to be an actual 0. Okay, so elasticity is always expressed in a positive number or 0, never a negative. For those of you that math, I know it's hard to accept, just throw away the negative.
Just say it's absolute value.
Yes, there you go. For those of you who math, absolute value. There you go. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without you, Emmerich. Okay. Are we good on this so far? Because we're about to start breaking down the formula. Here comes the drop. Yes. All right. So the standard method for computing percentage change would be the end value minus the start value. So here we have the end value minus the start value, right? Now you see the numbers, KK, that you can use to apply. Okay. So what would you calculate in this one? What would your elasticity be?
12 minus 8 over 12.
Are we calculating change in quantity or change in price?
We are getting price.
That's price elasticity of demand. Because we're talking 1 over 50?
Is it 200 minus 250 over 200?
25% is correct. Was that you, Taylor?
That's what I'm at.
Nice. Taylor maths. Okay. So what we've just calculated is the top part of the total elasticity equation, correct? We haven't done the quantity part.
Why do we need the opposite quantity to do?
We will. Okay. Now, the problem with using that method is it depends on where you start. Some of you started backwards. You went from B to A instead of A to B. Tony did that.
Yeah.
Okay. The answer you get, depending on where you start, is different. That's pretty significant difference. Yes? So that could really mess up your answers, couldn't it? Which is why we use the midpoint formula.
But if you get
Sherm, I told you it was going to change. Don't be frustrated.
so there will always be like an A and a B. Because what if we just got our steps straight?
What if you just what?
It got our things straight, like from start to end.
That is start to end, but it matters which way you read it. If you start at A and go to B, it gives you one answer. If you start at B and go to A, it gives you a different answer.
Wait, but isn't the start at A?
I just assumed
Not
the start
necessarily. Just because you're used to reading A to B doesn't mean maybe price decreased.
$200 the beginning price that you started at?
Where did you ever see that? Price changed either from 250 to 200 or from 200 to 250. You haven't been told. You just are calculating elasticity when price changes.
Isn't this that same problem that we
Elasticity should be the same whether the price has gone up or gone down. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get through to you. Okay. Yes.
So what if you know that? Like,
What if you know price went up like we do in this scenario is what Ethan's saying?
Yeah. Then do you only do the A to B, or do you still do both?
You're not going to do either.
So we're never going to use this.
No, you're going to use this. I just wanted to show you why you wouldn't use that so that you wouldn't argue about it.
Thank you.
Now you're going to use this. You're going to divide by the midpoint. Because this way it doesn't matter whether you start with 200 and go to 250, or start with 250 and go to 200. Because it's what you're dividing by that gives you the different answer. And so if you always divide by the midpoint, same answer every time.
That's nice. That way you can make a mistake, but
Yeah. You could think about it backwards and still get the right answer. What?
Unless you mess up the midpoint formula.
Yeah, unless you can't make an average. No calculators. Okay, so let's look at it in action. Okay, so the percentage change in price over the percentage change in quantity using the midpoint method for both. Price elasticity of demand is 1.8. Okay, so use the midpoint method for price, use the midpoint method for quantity, and then divide price by quantity. And for those of you who math, dividing price by quantity is rise over run. It is your slope. Kyle, is this seriously just that easy for you?
No, that's just fine.
Because this is new territory for even those of you who took macro.
Like, if right now I get it, and if I don't get it, it's in the book.
Okay, fair enough. It makes sense when you talk, Hoke. All good. All right, are we ready to move on and actually apply this?
yes.
You always divide quantity by price.
You always divide price by quantity, P over Q.
That's only on this.
I thought it was quantity divided by price.
Quantity demanded over price.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow. Yes. It would help if I mathed.
Yeah.
You still got a 33 on your ACT gymnastics.
That math isn't hard, though.
It's like
Some
with
people are
this,
getting
Except for the
14s.
last 5
Say what, Marco?
problems.
like this math on the ACT is like this gets like slope and like midpoint formulas. And
Yeah.
That just,
But then there's the last 5 problems.
Yeah,
The last 5 problems that make you weep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to actually calculate some elasticity. See if you do it right. I'll give you time to everybody calculate it all the way through so you can actually see if you can do.
alright.
They put that picture in there because they know that this is a boring subject.
Yes. It is a very technical and boring subject. There's not much I can do to jazz it up.
It's not boring. It's just,
We have a laser light show.
At least the numbers are easy.
you can disco ball.
You can always do better.
You might want to write it down. Do you need some scratch paper? I've got some here if you want.
Oh, sure.
By the way, those of you who eventually go back and watch these lectures on the internet, I don't go back and cut these pauses out, figuring that you have the ability to fast forward and that's easier for you than for me to sit and watch the whole thing over and edit it again.
It's a bold strategy.
It's not that I'm being lazy, I just don't have time. Okay, I'm seeing faces, so we're going to look at how this goes down. So percentage change in quantity demanded, what did you come up with?
50%.
Should have been 50%. Should have been 5,000 minus 3,000 over 4,000.
Are all
Okay.
the numbers gonna be easy like this?
No, probably not. Is that? And then the percentage change in price,
25%.
90 minus 70 is 20, and the midpoint was 80. So what's your price elasticity of demand? 2.
How come you don't put a percent?
Because price elasticity of demand is a number. And the percents, if you're dividing percent by percent, you're canceling the percent signs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Numbers like that.
What? Can they all just be like that? Yeah.
They technically could.
Warren Buffett actually won't buy a company if the math involves fractions and decimals and stuff. It's just all easily divisible whole numbers when he checks the books. So, keeps a lot of companies from being acquired by Berkshire Hathaway.
I wouldn't do it either.
Okay. So, what determines price elasticity? What determines? Now, rather than just giving you a list of the determinants, which you could get out of the book if you've read, I'm going to make you figure them out, since most of you haven't read.
Yeah.
Because that will stick with you longer anyway. All right. So, let's look at a scenario here. We've got two goods. The prices of both goods go up 20%. The good for which quantity demanded falls the most has the highest price elasticity of demand. So we have to figure out which good it is and why that good has a higher price elasticity of demand than the others. Okay? So, breakfast cereal and sunscreen. Price for both of them goes up 20%. For which good is quantity demanded going to drop the most? Dylan? So I heard sunscreen, I heard cereal. All right. Your answer should have been, well, I need more time to think. You have to analyze both of the goods. Breakfast cereal has close substitutes. If you can't have cereal for breakfast, you can have a waffle. You can have pancakes. You could have a fried egg. Okay, you could eat cold pizza. Right? There's a lot of other options. A Carnation instant shake. Okay, you've got other options if the price goes up. What are your other options if the price of sunscreen goes up?
Sunblock.
Sunblock and sunscreen are the same. Butter? Butter. Yes. I like to be crispy as well as tan.
Baby oil.
Okay. Do you understand the point?
Yeah.
If there are not close substitutes, you don't really have much of an option to buy less. Does that make sense? We have to assume ceteris paribus. So your tastes and preferences to not die of melanoma have not changed just because the price of sunscreen went up. You are still just as risk averse to sunburn as you were before. Ceteris paribus. Michael.
I thought you said for the elasticity ones you don't need add or the Latin thing afterwards.
It's always assumed from here on out. We established it with the laws of supply and demand, but whenever we're changing something, you have to assume, unless I tell you differently, you assume always nothing else changes.
So it applies to this, but you just don't have to say it.
Right. Right. It's an ever-present caveat. Okay. So, price elasticity is higher for items that have close substitutes. Hint. You just figured it out. It's in red. This is an elasticity determinant.
Ooh.
Price elasticity is higher if there are substitutes. Meaning I'm more likely to go find something else that will satisfy me just as much if the price goes up. Tristan, this is new stuff for you. We've not done elasticity before. And your book is still not covered.
It's almost been a while.
I think we did a little tiny bit of elasticity.
Barely.
Barely.
We just learned like
Yeah,
what's elastic.
what the word meant.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the no homework. I'm tired of the book not covered. I'm done. Fix them both by tomorrow, or we're going to deal. All right. Blue jeans versus clothing.
Oh, wait.
What is the difference? What are some possible substitutes for blue jeans?
Like,
Khakis, shorts, sweatpants, track pants, some transparent Lululemon yoga pants, right? Okay. What are some alternatives or substitutes for clothing?
trash bags. Nude.
Yeah.
What
Other than trash bags and going naked. So, do you see what the difference is?
Yeah.
Okay. So, for narrowly defined goods, there are substitutes. But for broadly defined goods that are kind of all-encompassing, there aren't really substitutes. Okay. So if prices in the whole clothing sector go up versus the price of denim going up, okay, which one is elasticity going to be higher? Blue jeans.
If we all went naked, we're gonna have to buy blue jeans.
You'd have to buy a lot more of that higher priced sunblock. And you'd probably end up eating a lot less breakfast cereal. Too many carbs.
Wait,
That's when you
so
can't hide anything.
Uh-huh.
in the book they determine it to like availability is close substitutes, which is that what we just talked about.
But it's
And
still,
then would this one be the definition of the
that was
market?
good to know.
No, it's the same.
It's the same one. It's just applying it differently.
Oh, okay.
It's the same.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. I didn't think that through. Got it.
Yeah, just hammering it home again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Insulin versus Caribbean cruises. What substitutes are available for insulin?
Shots.
Yeah.
Insulin.
What's insulin?
Death. Good funeral plan. Okay. What alternatives what substitutes are available for Caribbean cruises?
Yes, I just asked what insulin is. Do you have a problem with that?
How about a trip to Mexico, or a trip to the Mediterranean, or an Alaskan cruise, or a trip to Florida, right? A new car! Okay. If you are diabetic, there really is no alternative to insulin. Okay? An increase in its price is hardly going to change demand. Okay? We have to assume that the tastes and preferences of diabetics still include continued life. Cruises are luxuries. If the price goes up, some people just skip it. So, price elasticity for a luxury is higher than for a necessity.